Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalat, wassalam, wa rasulullah. Welcome to our resilient families in Ramadan, continuing our journey every day through this Ramadan with beautiful stories from the graduates of our certification program. It's just been a wonderful time catching up with everybody, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation with Rayesa. We used to be in constant conversation, and in the last months it hasn't, we haven't had that. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation, inshallah, and I hope you will too. And I do think the topic is a really beautiful topic about the results being in Allah's hands, and that's such a really key realization or insight. But before we launch into it, I just want to check in with Risa and ask her to share a little bit about the way she is using this understanding in her work, because each one of the graduates has their own unique way in which they are sharing this. And so I'd love for Risa to share a bit about how she is using this, inshallah. Risa, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. It's wonderful to be here with you, Catherine. We go way back over a decade of, being supported by you and learning and growing and now sharing, the growth. And I originally came to you even before it was back to the Fitra Academy, and when I was going through a really turbulent divorce and a really difficult co-parenting situation. And so that's what I do now is I support women who feel like divorce is their only option, and they've tried everything else, and the only option looks like I need to get a divorce. So I support them in making decisions with clarity, confidence, and conviction that's rooted in taqwa and tawakkul. And it wasn't always like that. Going through a divorce myself, I was supported women in really like setting up what does the next chapter of their life look like after the post-divorce. How do they find themselves? How do they know how to move forward in their life? And then, I started getting more and more women who weren't sure what they wanted to do. So it just went a step before that, until from going from rebuilding after divorce to now wanting to make that type of decision, really life altering decision, in a place where that she can feel really good about uh, for her life in this world and in the next. Being able to stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and know like that she did the best that she could and she made the right choice. And you can imagine going through a divorce or even thinking about it, or feeling helpless sometimes, even, or feeling so overwhelmed. It can be hard to see clearly and and move forward without any of that regret or guilt.
Because it's a very emotional time, and when we're emotional, obviously our wisdom gets very clouded. But I want to step back to your obviously your tagline with the 3 C's and the 2 T's, right? So what were the 3 C's? Let's slow it right down, because I think there's a lot in that one sentence. So I remember there was confidence, conviction, and clarity. Was it the 3?
Yeah, clarity, confidence, and conviction that's rooted
Yes.
in a taqwa and tawakkul. Like just those are the guiding principles, and that is how you come to clarity, confidence, and conviction when you're in those states of taqwa and tawakkul.
So the clarity is the finding clarity on whether to say or go. The confidence is to be able to step forward with that decision in a way that's pleasing to Allah. And the certainty, that was the 3rd one, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah,
The conviction,
conviction.
conviction, conviction. The conviction is that you know with all your heart that this is the right decision. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the outcome is divorce, because you've had many that through this process actually find their way forward in their marriage, right?
SubhanAllah, absolutely, yes. I have people who go. I see, the issue is not the divorce or not. The issue is the decision. So
Mm.
I have women who do, their whole marriage shifts around. And then I have women who decide to, okay, I'm going to show up for the sake of Allah in the marriage that I'm in right now, and I'm going to keep moving forward. Um, and then they decide to give it a go again, like they decide to be in the marriage again, on different terms, but and then they've decided to divorce. So it's not like a solid answer, this is what I'm doing, and and this is the end all be all. Life is fluid, life is always changing, and there's always something that's coming around the bend that we don't know about. But when we're attached to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we are guided by him moment by moment, we don't need to know what we're doing tomorrow or the day after. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to guide us, and it's with that conviction and that confidence and that peace that you can really move forward, no matter what life is bringing to you. Like, for example, I have several women right now who believe that that's the right choice for them. Is like they've just exasperated and they feel like they've tried everything and nothing is changing. But now they still don't know whether they're going to stay or go. They're at so much peace. They're in so much peace of not knowing. They're in so much peace of what's going to come next, that they're okay navigating this moment by moment, day by day, and showing up for the sake of Allah in the relationship that they are right now, even though it's really challenging and difficult.
Mm. I think that's important for people to understand that the work you do isn't persuading people one way or the other. It's actually helping them come back to how Allah is guiding them, whether Allah's saying, this is, you've done your best, time to move on, or no, you've just got clouded in all of this, but there is a way forward. And it's beautiful work because it helps people, have that clarity and conviction on their direction forward. And I think that's the real challenge when you reach that hopelessness, is that it's all foggy, that you're just not sure, and divorce looks like the only way to feel at peace again. And so many people are choosing that pathway just to get out of the discomfort of being in that fog. And so what you're helping them do is remove the fog so they can see what's really going on.
Yeah, and that's then at the end of the day, that's what people really want. They want relief. They want peace. And like you said, it looks to them in those moments that, look, the only way I'm going to get that is by getting out of this marriage or by removing this person out of my life. And that's what it looks like. And it's just a misunderstanding. It may very well be you do get divorced, but not from that lens, not from that space. Um, because when you're in that overwhelm and when you're in that discomfort, like you said, um, it's hard to be in the states of taqwa and tawakkul that are needed to be able to make a decision that you won't regret, that you can feel good about, because you're following Allah's guidance.
This segues beautifully into the topic, actually, because you go into it and then you teach them to also um, come into a place of not being focused on the outcome, but being focused on the present moment. And our whole topic is about the result or the outcome being in Allah's hands. But you want to talk about it from a parenting perspective. So we kind of can segue it across now into the parenting context. Um, but what I would like to, I guess, get you to answer before we look through the parenting lens is, what difference does it make to our experience of life when we truly believe and hand over the outcomes to Allah?
Hmm. I will I will answer that this way, because as human beings, the way that we work, we're like, when we see something is going well, like, oh, my child is on track, they're doing all the right things, checking all the boxes, then we feel like at ease and at peace. But when they are off track, or they're not listening, or they're falling into things that could be harmful for them, we start panicking. So it's like where's the like it's like we go up and down based on what we're seeing with our eyes. But how do we know that what we're seeing with our eyes is actually what we're thinking and believing to be true? And the understanding that we are learning here at Back to the Fifth Academy allows us to be grounded no matter what you're seeing, allows your inner state to be in that state of clarity, to be in that state of connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be in that state of taqwa, to be in that state of tawakkul, to be in that state of yaqeen, that, okay, things may look a little crazy right now, but it's okay because the circumstances and situations are not necessarily in my hand, but how I respond is totally in my control. And that grounding, Catherine, allows you to show up, or I'm going to give my own example, allows me to show up as a parent to represent Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to my child in that moment. So can I be a vehicle of displaying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's compassion and love to my child in that moment, no matter what she is doing, no matter what struggle she's going through? Can I transmit the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through me to help her connect back to her connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because He's always guiding them, no matter what they are doing or what they are going through, no matter how bad it looks on the outside. It's not the end of the world. It's not over. They're just going through a struggle, and this really allows us, like, part of their struggles. Actually, one of the things I've learned is part of their struggles comes to help us get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to help us get firmly rooted in our connection and relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so we can be that vehicle that can help us connect the child to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because that's what they need.
So what I'm hearing as you unpack that is that when we're not focused on the outcome, when we're focused in the present moment, it gives opportunity for you to be in a state of taqwa and tarbiyah and tawakkul, so that you can lead your child in the best way, that you can demonstrate with ihsan, the best way, and that the focus becomes on your relationship with Allah and their relationship with Allah, and not so much on what happens next. What happens next is not even on your mind. It's out of
Mm.
out of out of the picture. And so what then comes as a question is, so if we are focused on the outcomes, if our mind is sort of projecting ahead that this is where this is heading, and sometimes it looks like that because we've been here before, and last time it went that way, and so it looks like we're going that way again, right? And we get caught up in that result outcome thinking. What does that do about the state that you're describing, being, that state of leading with ihsan your child, or even your anything to do with your life, right?
Hmm. Hmm. What you're asking about, when we are worried or fearful based on what we're seeing in front of us, like you have like a child who is, like, say, fallen off the path, doing things that are against Islam, headed down like a dark path, headed down the direction that can be harmful for them in their dunya and even in their akhirah. Of course, that's naturally alarms and worries a parent, especially a mother, and then our mind starts going to all of the what if scenarios, or oh my god, what's going to happen to her if she continues like this. It's what's going to happen, what will become of her, all these things. And that creates, when our mind starts traveling out of the present moment and into the future, in the doom and gloom, we get disconnected, first of all, from ourselves, and then from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that moment, because only Allah knows the future. And so when we are recognizing that, wait a minute, I'm disconnected from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and myself in this moment, because I'm hypothesizing about the future and what may happen and what may not. And I'm alone there, actually, because I'm alone there with my mind and my thoughts. And it feels so real and scary. And I think in those moments is helping ourselves first to get grounded, to slow down. And that's why I love how you teach about taking the pause and slowing down, and reestablishing the connection between myself and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first. Um, because that's the key, is to be able to help our child. We have to be in a calm, grounded state, because without that, it'll just be a lot of yelling and screaming, and or even projecting our own fears onto them, and then that puts additional pressure onto them, and it makes them run the other way from you. Whereas what is helpful here is they're struggling. That's why they're falling off the path, or they're off track. And what they need is, they need safety from you, that you're not going to put more pressure on them of what you think that they need to be doing, what they should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing, and why. They don't need a lecture at that time. They need safety in your presence. They need that connection, that they can rely on you and trust you, that their internal chaos that's going on is going to be, that they'll get support from you. And if we're not in our calm, neutral wisdom state, it's difficult to provide that to anybody, much less our own children. And that's why, like I said, sometimes the struggles our children go through, they bring up big feelings within us. They bring up fears and worries, and even guilt, especially as mothers. So many times I've been like, oh my God, I did this and I did this and I was like this, and that's why she's like this now. And it's really just coming back to helping myself, or getting the support that I need to help myself to reestablish that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first, because He is guiding me and He's guiding her, and He's going to guide me on how to help her. Whether it's me or bringing in other people, He's going to guide me on who can help her.
So, would you describe the what happens when we're not in that state of recognizing Allah's guidance and following it in how we're meant to be as a parent, in those sorts of chaotic moments we get as parents, that it becomes a direction of needing to fix
Mm.
and wanting to control? Would that sort of sum up what is actually now going on, instead of following Allah's guidance and being in the present moment and being in a state of peace as you navigate the challenge? It becomes, how do I fix this? How do I get this back under control?
Oh yeah, those are the words. How do I fix it? How do I fix her? How do I get her to do this? How do I get her to do that? Because if she does this, then everything will be okay. And then, I have it all planned out in my mind, how things are going to go and how she's going to get back on track. And I've completely innocently, of course, I've forgotten Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in those moments. And I'm just creating this master plan because of the fear, the worry, the insecurity. And it's really scary. It can feel really dark, actually,
So,
because, like,
yeah, because I was just going to say, to connect the dots just before you move on. So, in that moment, we are not seeing that the outcome is in Allah's hands. We're actually putting the outcome in our own hands, aren't we? And that's the key mental shift that is creating the problem in our own mind.
Absolutely, absolutely, because I feel like I need to do everything. I'm carrying everything. I'm controlling everything. And it's a misunderstanding, and it's a false sense of security thinking that we have any control. We don't. We're accountable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for how we respond and how we show up, but not their journey, or, the choices that they make, or how things evolve for them.
Mm.
And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only takes us to account for how we respond. Are we responding with that level of taqwa? Because the thing is that when we're in those emotional states, and this is why what you're teaching here, back to the fitra, is so relevant and key. If we don't understand where our internal state is coming from, and we are thinking and believing that it's coming from what my child is doing or not doing, then we're looking in the wrong direction. We've forgotten ourselves, we've forgotten Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we naturally go into, how do I fix this? How do I change her? How do I get her to see this? How do I get her to change? Okay, if she only does this, this, and this, and I'm micromanaging everything about her, how she thinks, what she does, just to get her to do what I think she needs to do, then I can feel okay. It's kind of like I'm revolving around her rather than revolving around Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
And that's what you just said, that last bit there is really key.
Mm.
It's that disconnection from tawakkul, a reliance upon Allah, to becoming reliant upon ourself. And we have a real pandemic of that in our ummah, because the secular way of looking at life is being infiltrated, through colonization in our Muslim lands, through those of us living in the West, that it is all about self-reliance, and it's all on us, that if the children are operating in a particular way, then there must be something that we're doing, which is not necessarily the case. Like, we can be showing up in our best state, and our children still go off track for whatever reason. Prophet Noor alayhi salam, couldn't get his son to follow him. So we've got examples even of the prophets where their children went off track, and they're a prophet of Allah, right? And so getting caught up in this idea where we're missing tawakkul, we're missing reliance upon Allah, leads to all of this thinking that we have to do this, instead of breathing, taking a step back and going, okay, how is Allah guiding me to handle this?
Yeah,
And it feels so different. The energy of it feels completely different, doesn't it?
very different. And as I'm listening to you, I've had so many moments, so many months actually, of doing just that, of like, I couldn't accept any other result or outcome other than what I wanted for her. Of course, I wanted khair, and I wanted good, and I wanted her to be on the path of Islam, but I had to have it my way. And I couldn't let go and accept that I don't get to have it my way. This is not like, that Burger King or fast food that you get to have it your way. No, that's what we're spoon fed all the time. We get to have it our way. And I couldn't accept that. I couldn't accept any other outcome because I don't want a negative outcome. I don't want a bad outcome. And and how do I know what a bad outcome is? It goes back to what I was saying in the beginning. Just because what you're seeing right now in this moment doesn't mean that it's a doom and gloom. It doesn't mean that it's finished, And that is why we need to take it moment by moment, instead of buying into what you're seeing and then being judge, jury, and executioner, like you're going to figure this all out. It's all on you. You have to fix it. And that creates so much stress internally and externally. It creates a lot of chaos in the relationship. It pushes the child away from you, because it doesn't feel good when, in any relationship, but it doesn't feel good for the child to feel like they're pressured to do what you want them to do because you're trying to get an outcome when they're just struggling. Because I think another important thing is that Allah is always guiding our children. It's
Yes.
just it's just like, can we lean into that, and can I help my child to uh, for them, with that connection, through that connection, to drop their own stories that's keeping them away from the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, rather than me trying to get them. Why can't I just help them connect back to Allah, which is what their solution is anyways.
And what you've just described is another element of secularization that we've adopted. And that is that this whole idea that it's on us to inculcate everything, put everything into our child. We've lost the concept that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them whole just the way they are, and that it's not up to us to do that. It's up to us to be the role model, the leader, the guide, the educator, but leave the guidance, the true guidance, and everything to Allah. And when we don't see that, if we hang on to these secular ideas, it leads us to that thinking that it's all on us instead of reliance on Allah. And then, without meaning to, we are now operating in a way where we're actually disconnecting our child from Allah, because we're not pointing them back to Allah's guidance. We're pointing them to, you need you need to obey me and do it the way I say, because it's a bad deed if we get so caught up in this black and white rigid rhetoric that we are completely pushing them away. And I think that's the key thing
Yeah.
in all of this, is the pushing them away. You cannot influence your child from outside of the relationship. You can only influence them from within the relationship. So if the relationship is broken down, well, bad luck. Your influence is now gone.
You hit the nail on the head. You can only influence them from inside a healthy, strong connection, a safe, secure relationship. You can open up doors of different ways of thinking. You could help them be curious, because they're willing to hear you, because it's safe to. And two of the things when I heard you just talking right now after what I said is like, the last thing I said was, we unknowingly, not even realizing it, we end up teaching them to worship us instead of worshiping Allah. And it's such a
Exactly.
disservice. It's such a disservice. And when you realize it, you're like, oh, subhanallah, what have I done? What have I done? What am I doing? And I've had those moments so many times, like, Raisa, stop. You help her go back to her source, not like to what you need, what you think you need, so you can feel good, so you can feel like, oh, look what I've look at my child as a reflection of me. And that all reminded me of what one of the concepts you taught us, Catherine, is that cutting the spiritual umbilical cord,
Mm.
the detaching of our child belonging to us, and understanding that cutting of the spiritual umbilical cord really is letting go of the child as ours, and really helping them reattach back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as they once were, because that's the solution.
I'd probably reframe that a little bit, because their attachment to Allah was always there, but they require in this dunya an attachment to uh, their parents or to their caregiver, as
Yeah.
a part of them feeling a
Growth, the
sense of
growth and
security.
development. Yeah. A
Yeah.
healthy growth and development.
And
Yeah.
if we've done a good job of understanding our role in that, then their attachment to Allah hasn't been severed. But what needs to happen, which is that transition between being a child who's not accountable to being an adult who
Mm.
is that we cut off gradually their attachment to us, and keep pointing them back to Allah being the source, I think is how I would describe it these days. And I think that's an area where we are failing our children, unfortunately, because parents are wanting to hold on to their kids too long. They're wanting their children to remain attached to them. And as a result, that
Or
is.
defining their own self through their children's behavior.
Mm. So unfortunately, then there is a covering then of their fitra, a covering of their attachment to Allah. We become the barrier to them truly being able to be accountable directly to Allah, because they also feel like they have to be accountable to us as well. I think I experienced that because I grew up, of course, in a non-Muslim environment, and so there was never any um, concept of attachment to Allah in anything that I learned throughout my life. But there was a moment in this understanding when we came to understand separate realities where I had this moment of detachment from my mother because I recognized the separate realities, and I realized that I need to stand in my own reality, not one where I'm kind of trying to look up, be a part of her reality as well, like trying to contort myself to be who I thought she thought thinks I need to be, right? But when I experienced that detachment from my mother, which obviously wasn't a disconnection, it was just a detachment, I really noticed the connection with Allah, and I really recognized this is as an adult at 46, by the way. I recognized how that attachment to my mother had actually been holding me back from fully attaching as a convert Muslim to Allah. That it had been there as a barrier. I recognized that at the time when it happened, but now in this conversation, I kind of saw it in a different light and thought that that might help consolidate what we're trying to explain, that we go into adulthood making decisions based on we need to do it in a way that pleases our parent rather than the way to please Allah, and that's kind of how what it looks like.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what we were talking about, Catherine, about healthy attachment to develop and grow, and then let the child go and live their own, not live their own life, but like be their own person, being guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because one of the things that when I was listening to you, what I also realize and I see everywhere, in the work that we do is that when we raise and grow our children, that you um, have to listen to me or else I get upset or I get angry, and they get busy trying to manage our emotions and our feelings. And it tends to lead into people pleasing. It starts by, parent pleasing, and then it leads to people pleasing. And that is, it's impossible to, not impossible, but it's hard, difficult to be completely Allah focused and Allah pleasing when there's that getting in the way of people pleasing. And that's how, that starting from the parent pleasing, you go out into the world, you start pleasing, thinking that, oh, I have to please everybody else now because that's the tarbiyah, or that's the modeling that I received or what I learned or what I picked up along the way. And that's a tendency. And then I've noticed that also it gets in the way of having that pure attachment to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where you're only focused on pleasing Him, without other things or people getting in the way.
And how this ties back into our topic of the results being in Allah's hands, and really embracing that, is the people pleasing is that we think that the outcome of the person being pleased is in our hands, and it's not. And so there's the confusion. It's all about that, focusing on outcomes, focusing on people being pleased, focus on kids turning out the way we expect them to turn out. Basically, it's we've got a picture in our head, and if it looks different to the picture in our head, then something is wrong. But that's not understanding the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about how we can plan, but he is it's his plan is the plan that is going to prevail. And true submission to Allah is recognizing that, okay, I can plan, and we're going to plan, but not be attached to that plan, and not be attached to the picture in our mind of how it's going to look, and be really open and accepting to how it all unfolds and ends up looking. And what I've witnessed is it always ends up so much better than anything we planned when we do that.
Yeah, when we surrender and let go, we allow the Lord of the universe to, like, create with his majesty how he does, rather than us trying to limit everything with our own human thinking. It always comes out better because of that tawakkul, and the master plan Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has is always best.
And I just for a quick side note before we wrap up, I do want everybody to understand that what we're saying here is about the inner work. There is always setting limits, holding limits. It's not about being complacent, because sometimes people listen to what we're saying and then they think, oh, I don't have to do anything, I just have to be. That's not what we're saying. It's about, we have to be first and then we do second.
Yeah,
That. But so
absolutely.
what our dialogue is about what's going on inside of us, and the way we're thinking about it and looking at it. We are still responsible for showing up for our kids and setting limits when limits are being crossed, and educating them in
Mhm.
what is right, um, according to Islamic law, all of those sorts of things.
Yeah.
I don't want anyone to think that we're suggesting any kind of sort of complacency in terms of our role as a parent.
I think that's a really great point you mentioned that, because when the inner work is done in this way, where you can be grounded and connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you can have the difficult conversations where you would have been afraid of having, because you're worried about how they're going to react or how they're going to feel. You can have the difficult conversations even if it looks like they don't want to hear it.
Mm.
It still needs to be said. It still needs to be um, delivered. The message still needs to be delivered, but how we do it is based on our internal state. So that hard work it's not as hard, because we're not holding on to a certain outcome, and we're able to do it, as you said, or deliver or show up without all of the difficulty of worrying about how your child is going to respond, or what the pushback that you're going to get. Let me say that the pushback that is uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. So it allows us to really hold those limits when things look like they're getting messy.
So to wrap this up, what is the one key takeaway you would like people to get from this discussion?
I think that the key takeaway is that trust Allah, really trust Allah, and what your eyes are seeing are not always the truth. Trust Allah and what He is telling you, what He is guiding you, and yeah, that's really it. Don't be fooled by what your eyes are seeing. Doesn't mean you just ignore things, but don't allow that to take you out of your grounded, connected state with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and be lost in uh, like debilitating fear or overwhelm that you go into complacency or ignoring. But trust Allah rather than your own self.
Alhamdulillah, Jazakallah khair. So we'd love to hear your takeaways when we upload the recording. If you can post them in the comments below, we would love to read what it is you took away from the session. There's been some really amazing takeaways over this Ramadan, really amazing discussions. And if you are somebody who people come to for help, or you're in a role where you're supporting others, you could become a future focused educator, mentor, and coach like Rayesa and the others that we've been speaking to, just reach out if that's something that interests you, inshallah. Jazakallah khair, Rayesa. It has been wonderful to connect with you and have one of our discussions. We used to have them quite often, and I've missed them. Um, I'm, it's and it's really beautiful for you to have been able to share vulnerably about the challenges that you face, because I think that also helps people realize that we're just ordinary people with relatable experiences, just doing the best we can. But Allah has
Mhm.
blessed us with understanding things in a way that helps us do things better, and we love sharing that with others so they can do better too. So
Alhamdulillah.
Jazakallah khair.
Wayakum, thank you for having me. And by the way, I'm still very much knee deep in all of this. Everything that I've talked about, I haven't necessarily come out the other side. I'm in it as we go, and it keeps evolving. It keeps evolving. And when I show up and when I show up connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I feel His presence guiding me and my daughter. And so it's everything I said here is very much for me, and is my experience, and is for me first and foremost, in what I'm sharing.
Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair. So subhanakallahumma bihamdika shara la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. See you again tomorrow, inshallah, for another session on another topic. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.